Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico launched a blistering attack on European leaders Wednesday, accusing the European Union of hypocrisy and weakness as US-led peace talks with Russia unfolded in Saudi Arabia, without European or Ukrainian representation. Speaking in Bratislava, Fico did not hold back, condemning the EU for allegedly fueling the war in Ukraine, while now scrambling to portray itself as a peacemaker. He accused Europe of failing to pursue peace, instead focusing on weakening Russia at any cost.
The European Union has supported the war in Ukraine for 3 years. It ignored our warnings that the strategy of using the war in Ukraine to weaken Russia is not working. It refused to listen when we said that a conventional war against Russia cannot be won.
With US and Russian officials meeting in Riyadh to discuss the Ukraine conflict, the restoration of US-Russia ties, and a potential Trump-Putin summit, Fico's words underscored Europe's diplomatic irrelevance. He blasted Brussels' strategy as cynical and short-sighted.
When we argued that tens of thousands of Russians and Ukrainians were dying needlessly, they told us that Ukraine could only negotiate peace when it was strong enough. Pardon my honesty, but peace talks began when Ukraine could not possibly be weaker.
Fico doubled down, accusing the EU of exploiting the war to achieve political and economic gains against Russia, showing little regard for the human toll. He told European leaders to move past their frustrations over being sidelined by Washington and Moscow.
For 3 years, the West supported the war. It kept saying it was never the right time for even a ceasefire. And now that the new American president is bringing fresh, peace-oriented winds, Europe is suddenly trying to present itself as a peacemaker, forcing its way into negotiations that US and Russian leaders currently want to conduct quietly. For 3 years, the word peace was almost banned in the European Union. Europe should take responsibility for the last 3 years and create space for the United States and Russia to negotiate. It should also stop taking offense. It has no right to do so. The European Union should begin negotiating its own foreign policy, developing a new quality in relations between the US and the EU.
As Trump pressed ahead with talks in Riyadh, the US delegation acknowledged that compromises would be necessary on all sides of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Secretary of State Marco Rubio emphasized Trump's central role, stating, "Trump is the only leader who can bring peace to Ukraine."
For 3.5 years while this conflict has raged, or 3 years while it's raged, no one else has been able to bring something together like what we saw today, because Donald Trump is the only leader in the world that can. So no one is being sidelined here. But President Trump is in a position that he campaigned on to initiate a process that could bring about an end to this conflict. And from that could emerge some very positive things for the United States, for Europe, for Ukraine, for the world. But first it begins by the end of this conflict.
Fico's explosive remarks have laid bare the EU's internal divisions and highlighted a growing power shift as Washington and Moscow take control of the Ukraine peace process, leaving Europe sidelined on the global stage. The remarks come as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed that Ukraine had not received an invitation to Riyadh. EU leaders had already criticized US President Donald Trump for initiating talks without involving Europe or Ukraine, insisting that any future negotiations must include all parties.